Hello, everyone. Welcome again to Balance's conversation series with different leaders, talking about bringing balance in different aspects of life. And today we have with us Bernice Chao, and I'm very excited to have a conversation with her. She is a creative director and co-founder at Asians in Advertising, which is a nonprofit, but she does a lot more than that, and we'll get into that. Author. Uh, Events, TEDx coordinator, and much more. So I'm very excited to have a chat with Bernice. And if you like her stuff, do stick to the end of the show, and we'll talk more about what she's up to right now and the events and how you can be involved in the organization that she has and all her activities. So without further ado, hello, Bernice. How are you today?
Great. Thank you so much for having me on this.
Thank you. I'm very excited to be speaking with you today. I'm glad we just connected, and we're like, let's just do this. And that's always good. That's always a good sign of people being in sync when you can just make something happen quick, right?
I mean, I
Um,
was, I was so excited to learn about the platform you created, all the stats and data. I feel like that's what we really need to kind of make places finally care because, we need that honesty and that transparency.
Thank you, Bernice. So let's get to it. I would love. I'm sure everybody wants to hear a little bit of background. Where do you hail from? Where are you at now? Let's hear a little bit about that.
Yeah, I'm a California girl. I was born in Silicon Valley, up in Cupertino, where Apple is from. And I was always fascinated with creativity and technology, right? Kind of be on the forefront of that. And, today I am a creative director. I've worked on large scale campaigns for brands like Uber, Airbnb, Google, Amazon, Netflix, HBO, um, across many different car brands. So, having that knowledge of what is kind of coming up and what's next, plus that creativity really helps spread that marketing message and that brand kind of awareness. So hope that's a good
Nice.
snapshot.
It,
I'm in Los Angeles now, so I'm in Santa Monica.
no,
So
that's great.
Silicon
Um,
Valley to Silicon Beach.
that's wonderful. Well, that's wonderful. And where I know we're talking about diversity and leadership. So also, if you like to share where your background roots are from, that's also always appreciated.
My
Um,
ethnicity
yeah,
or
ethnicity,
yeah.
family, where the journey of
Okay.
where you.
So I am second generation. I was born in America. My parents immigrated here from Taiwan. I took one of those 23andMe tests and I learned that I'm Chinese, Taiwanese, a little, I think, Pacific Islander, Filipino, and Austronesian. So I have East Asian and Pacific Islander.
That's exactly that's a good mix. And we'll talk about Asians and advertising. Of course, when it comes to different ethnicities, generationally, our parents, especially if they're migrants, they kind of force you into specific sort of you know fields, STEM, and so for you taking a creative jump, what was the inspiration for you? How were you inspired to go into the creative space?
I mean, growing up, my parents always facilitated my love for art and drawing. They always put me in classes, encouraged that just because I think it kept me sitting still. I had a lot of extra energy, and so if I was coloring or drawing, it meant I was, sitting still for about an hour or two. And so my junior year of high school, I actually got a scholarship summer course at Stanford and at Academy of Art in San Francisco. I really liked my Academy of Art experience more than my experience at Stanford. And at that time, I was just really lucky to know someone peripherally that went to Art Center College of Design, and she was a boss. She at the time was the CCO, I believe, of Ernst and Young, and so she was doing, work that paid. And I think to my Asian parents, I was like, oh, there's an actual job at the end of this hobby. They were really supportive of that. So I basically found that out that she went to Art Center College of Design in Pasadena. I Googled it, found that Newsweek had an article that said it was the Harvard of art schools, shared it with my parents, and they were like, okay, you can go there. And so that's kind of how I made my journey to uh, Los Angeles and pursued that career.
That's wonderful. So role models, I guess, at the end of the day, huh? You saw some role models, and that paved the way.
Yeah, I
Um,
mean, that I would say I always tell students that I teach that I started my career at the beginning of pretty much social media. Nowadays, there's a lot more ways to get connected to those in careers that you're interested in. And I always say, just reach out to
Hmm.
10 people. The likelihood of one person reaching back is really high.
Hmm.
Back in my day, there wasn't that, right? Facebook just became a thing when I
Hmm.
graduated
Hmm.
college. So I wasn't able to just ask people online what they thought about their jobs. So I highly encourage that to people who are interested in jobs outside of the people they know.
That's wonderful. Okay. Okay. Now let's get to the meat of some of your current passions and projects and works. And I think the one we want to perhaps start with is Asians in Advertising, the nonprofit you co-founded. Can you tell us what inspired that and what's the purpose of that organization?
So this was an idea that I had about 5 years ago because it was the first time I worked with out of a 200-person agency, I worked with four other people that looked like me. And I felt so emblazoned by that notion that I had peers that it was relatable to me. And I brought up this idea of starting a group for Asians. And I would say the other four people were super excited. We had 2 or 3 meetings, and I felt the drop off happen really fast where they kind of lost interest and I was trying to push it ahead. And then I was like, maybe I'm the only one that feels that this is needed. Something for me in my career is the pain point of being so different in my vertical. I worked as a creative in advertising, which is a white male vertical. I would say all the leadership in this discipline and everyone that's promoted at the top are, they look so different than me. They're, a foot taller. They have a different skin color, culturally are so different. And so maybe it was the fact that I was in a different vertical that I felt this more than others as a pain point. And I wanted to create something for, basically for me, right? Where would I feel authentic? Where would I feel at home? And so it wasn't till a talk in 2020 where I saw for the first time a bunch of Asian leaders from TikTok, from Chase Bank, from Sephora, Kellogg, and I was like, oh my gosh, there's Asians in the C suite. And that was the first time I saw this visibility of Asian leaders. And it brought back this idea of that, group I wanted to create. Because at the end of the talk, what they said was, this was really great. We should do this more often. I don't know why we don't do this. And I was like, you guys don't even do this either? I was like, so no one does this. And
Hmm.
so, I have a lot of organic conversations from people I meet on LinkedIn. And I actually met someone at another, talk for Ascend, which is another leadership group for API. And her name was Jesselyn Lamb. And,
Hmm.
I only had a 20-minute conversation with her. And she was telling me all the ways she was involved in all these organizations. And so I felt like I never met someone so passionate for change as her. And so I kind of was thinking about it after our conversation. I think 2 weeks later, I emailed her and I was like, I have this URL that I bought 5 years ago. I had this idea to create a group for agents in advertising. What do
Okay.
you think about being my partner? She was in New York. I didn't know her personally. I couldn't meet her. And she was like, sure, I'm down. So we made the site on Saturday. She edited on Sunday. We put it live Monday with one event, 2 months out. No one knows who we are. And we had over 600 signups to do a networking group on Zoom.
Hmm.
And that
Wow.
was the max. It's not even like we could have had more. And, it was kind of amazing how many people cared about this. And when they showed up, it was around the world. So now we're at 2,000 members worldwide from representing multiple countries. We thought this was a US issue. We have
Hmm.
patients coming in from India, from Italy, from Australia. We have a group in Singapore, Canada. Like it's so interesting that, the need for this group was really there.
Mhm, mhm. And what do you see as your purpose? You mentioned, it was born over a weekend, and you kind of put it all together, and it kind of grew. What are you hoping to achieve through the organization? What are its kind of main goals and few bullet points?
No, thanks for asking that. We're actually built on 3 pillars.
Okay.
Uh, First being networking, because we know that 90% of advancement is based through who you know and connections. And I think if you don't know that many API or if you don't know to build those bridges and no one's reaching out to you because you could be just biasm or you look different or you just don't know to do this. I think culturally Asians don't know to ask for help because you
Hmm.
don't want to show the cracks. So networking. Second one is spotlighting API talent. So, where I was like, oh my gosh, there's leaders. I can be a leader. That's really important to us. And third is giving tangible skills. So,
Hmm.
what can we do to teach, other API fundamentals into kind of advancing their career? So, our hope
Hmm.
is to bring more Asians up through the ladder
Hmm.
and bring them into C-suite positions would be our
Yeah,
goal.
makes a lot of sense. Beautiful and much needed mission statement and goals. And this leads very well to um, the topic, perhaps, of the whole balance. And what we're trying to do is kind of understanding from your experience what are some barriers when it comes to the promotion of Asians or people of color in general in leadership roles. When it comes to your industry, what have you personally faced or have seen? And we can also do a few things. I'm sure it's multiple things that prevents this from happening.
I think there's a clash between, what we know from our parents and what works in the office space.
Hmm.
So, generationally, most of us, API, our parents came from war, right? So they came from a country where, they had to hold on to everything. They have to be brave. They are kind of stomaching things that are uncomfortable. And then they come to this country. They can't speak the language. They have to fit in. They just want to make it. And
Hmm.
so we were taught, I say we as generally, to be quiet, to work really hard, right? And that means merit. And that's why they tell us to become doctors or lawyers because those
Hmm.
things are usually merit based,
Based, yeah.
whereas other careers are probably not so much. And that's just for survival purposes. And so we are taught things like saving face, not speaking up when we're uncomfortable, um, like my parents always told me to like not be as loud because you don't want to be kind of taken out for being loud. You want to just kind of fit in and being comfortable. And
You
it's
just made some noise, just so you know. Your hand touched something. I was like, it's like a Buddha bowl or something. Sorry, to just
it's my table
go.
actually.
Oh, it's
Uh,
your table.
my
It's
table. Sorry.
Go for it.
But yeah, no. So it's like we try to tell people in our network, yeah, these
Hmm.
things our parents have taught us. There's a reason why they taught us. But
Hmm.
what can we know with what we know from them and what we know from just working? And things like self-promotion, not being so humble when it comes to your achievements. I feel like a lot
Hmm.
of times we don't know to talk about the good things that happen to us, the awards we win. We want to just be like, oh no. No, no, don't talk about me, talk about you. But no, we got to talk about ourselves because if no one else
Hmm.
is endorsing us, then we have to endorse ourselves.
Hmm.
Ask for it. Sometimes we're like, oh, I've just been working so hard. I've already been working at the next level. I should just be promoted. I see that guy over there just get promoted. So it's going to be my
Hmm.
turn soon, too. Not necessarily. Not until you
Hmm.
ask for it. They might just be like, oh, you look super happy because you're doing all the overtime. You're working the weekends. You're just hungry and you're just a worker bee versus you being a leader. So
Hmm.
giving
Hmm.
yourself space to ask for that. It's okay to
Hmm.
leave is another thing I say. Like, if you're asking for it and they're just like, "Oh, no, let's wait," "Oh, we get funding later." I hear a lot of times where people keep getting passed off and they're seeing
Hmm.
other people get raises, other departments get raises, their partners get raises, and they're just kind of like, "Wait, when is it gonna be my turn?" And that carrot keeps moving. And I say, maybe if you tried really hard and they're still not listening, it's fine, I think or immigrant parents are like, "Just stay where it's comfortable, stay where it's safe."
Hmm.
They go, "You have good hours, you know what's going on. Don't stir the pot. Just stay and be like compliant." And I'm like, "No,
Right.
you deserve it." And
Right.
it's okay to want more. And then lastly, build your network. Like there are so many executive level positions that don't even serve on the job board, and they're all about who you know. So
Hmm.
making the most of LinkedIn, your social circles, asking for that help, asking like, oh, what job openings do you have? What do you know about? Can you introduce me to so and so? And can they get me a leg in? Like it's okay to ask.
Wow. We're going to make a listicle of this later because you definitely gave us a very useful list, which was both internal about what uh, people of color themselves could be doing, as also what's happening in the outside world or the other side. So you gave a beautiful list. I kind of wanted to dig in on a few of them a little bit
Sure.
deeper in terms of when it comes to leadership and leadership positions. What do people, in your experience, uh, who are at the level of having the decision makers to promote or not promote people to leadership positions, what do they look for other than talent and merit that are not tangible that you think then it comes down to and prevents people from being promoted?
I went to this talk for something in my industry called 3% conference because less
Okay.
than 3% of creative directors are women. And one of the talks that really struck me was this one that talked about potential. So if your leader, for some reasons looking at the next person in his team, he looks for that person with potential. And usually that
Hmm.
person with potential, there's some biasm, right? So someone that's more their friend, maybe looks like them, they culturally get each other, so you look at this person and you're like, he can be the next leader because I see myself in this person.
Hmm.
And with someone else that looks different culturally, maybe it's a different gender, you kind of start seeing the deficits. Can Bernice speak up enough? Can she present well enough? Does she have the skill set needed? Versus this other person that may not have all the skills, but now has all the potential. And so
Hmm.
that's where something intangible about leadership really comes from, uh, that you can't just like fake that, right? So it's like it's hard to like get that conversation moving about leadership when there is that just implicit bias.
Right, right. Beautifully put, beautifully put. You pointed at one, of course, right? I think they even have a term for that. I can't really think of it when people are choose people who look the closest to them as the next leader, which is part of implicit bias. Are there other biases like that that you can think of right now that also play a part?
I'm trying to think. Sorry, it's like on the spot
No, take
here.
your
So
time.
I'm trying to think what else I can point to for that. But it's also like if you think about this happening over time in your career.
Hmm.
So when you're looking down at who's going to be the next VP or C suite. So if you're C suite, you're looking at VP level. No one at that level is that color is the same color, right? Because they
Hmm.
all got that bonus bump, that leadership bump, that elevator up. And so you're like, "Oh, there's no one here at this next level qualified."
Hmm.
So Cindy
Hmm.
Gallup, she's amazing. She's a mentor of mine, super badass woman. And she was like, "Hey, leaders, I employ you to look 2, 3 rungs down because someone else may have not had that same opportunity."
Hmm. Hmm.
And not because they can't do the job, it's because they were never given the chance to do that job. And
Right.
so that's one thing when people say, "Hey, no one here of color is qualified." That's another way to find talent. And,
Mhm.
she says, "Hey, they're probably even hungrier than those people that got the elevator up."
Right, right, right. Yeah, and it's and what you're pointing to now is kind of solutions in a way, right? Like, I think at some point also there's this when it comes to these things, people are like, oh, but what do we do? Like, they're looking for solutions, and sometimes solutions could be obvious, like what you mentioned. Look down the ladder, and there's more people, and that. What are some other things that you have found to be more of solutions that can be implemented to get more people in the leadership roles?
I mean, corporations need to be supportive of this, and I think that's what your work you're doing is so important because you're making them recognize that, if they're not doing it.
Hmm.
Especially big organizations that say they are doing it, and you're like, "Well, the numbers don't show that," or "Your
Hmm.
leadership numbers don't show that." So what can you create internally as a program? How are you facilitating this conversation? Are you connecting your internal talent with people that they could see as mentors? Are you providing programs? Are you providing ERG like groups? What are you doing to kind of support the diversity?
Hmm.
Are the vendors you're working with diverse? Are the people you're showing on screen diverse? Like it needs to permeate and not just the employees they have. It should be
Right.
in every piece of the business. Needs to support that same thought and also continually supporting it. I know
Hmm.
for API is really popular during Lunar New Year and API Heritage Month, but those are only 2 months. What about the rest of the year? You can't just like come up and be like, look, we care because it's convenient. You have to care all the way through. And so making corporations like, hey, stop and just be like, what can we do today? What
Right.
resources, what are we actively going to, you know,
Right.
do here?
And one of the things that has been done and doing is corporations hiring, a diversity officer, a chief diversity officer of some form or shape. Have you had any experience with them? Do you think they are effective to hire like a one dedicated person to to do whatever they they are charged with? Is it effective?
I mean, it's a step in the right direction. I think it depends every corporation if they're giving that person, the actual room to do their job.
Hmm.
It's one thing to be like, cool, we're going to have someone champion it, but are you giving them any autonomy to do that? Are you letting them put forth policies and actual ways to make change?
Hmm.
Would be like, hey, like that's where I say, be like, okay, let's really push on that.
Right, right. So just hiring them, by and yeah, it may not be enough, and you gotta give him autonomy into the programs and experimentation, right? Because I think this is a space that hasn't nobody really has a clear cut answer to it. It's something that we have to collectively find a path. So there needs to be a lot of room for experimentation. Um, so they could experiment. They should have the resources, and the human and the financial resources to experiment and find solutions. I know you're writing a book, and I want to get into that a little bit. What is the title of the book, if it has one, or what are the contents? What should we looking forward to in this book of yours that you're
Yeah,
writing?
my co-founder Jesselyn and I were approached by Wiley Publishers. The book is called The Visibility Mindset: How Asian American Leaders Create Opportunities and Push Past Barriers. We are currently writing it, and it will be on sale fall this year. Fall 2022 is the hope. So we're busily writing it now. It's basically going to have chapters where we talk about ways to stay visible because Asians have this idea that we're the invisible minority, right? Where other minorities and people of color kind of get surfaced when you talk about the need, but Asians kind of aren't seen there.
Hmm.
They just have this assumption that all Asians are doing fine, and so that promotion, that vertical climb is not there. And so, how
Hmm.
do you stay top of mind? So, we have different chapters, including like how to advocate for yourself, finding your voice, and just at the end of each chapter, we actually have interviews with Asian leaders and say, like, hey, what skill sets would you want to share? And so it's supposed to be a guide in terms of
Oh,
like,
wonderful.
tangible takeaways with, questions you can kind of leave with and ways to kind of really look at yourself and see your areas of places to, work on. Or there's
Mhm.
nothing wrong with who you are, but just, how can we just show off more of who you are so your leadership can see that?
That's wonderful. And these interviews, are they with people in advertising, or you've gone into other fields as well?
Other fields as well.
Other fields as well. Okay. That's great. That's really cool. I'm looking forward to it. This is exciting. And it will be out in a year?
And fall
In fall. Oh, this year. Okay.
this year.
Okay. So that's good job starting to promote it from now on. Is is this the first show you've spoken on
About it?
about the
Yeah,
book?
this will be the first.
Oh, yes. Oh, great. We gotta have some, exclusivity to this interview.
Thank you.
We're very happy. And then there is, of course, besides your book, is all these events of that your nonprofit is putting out. Tell us about some of these events. What is being talked about in these events? Who can participate, and how? I'm sure listeners want to jump on these events, especially if they're interested in the topic. So yeah, do tell us.
So I want to talk about our big event during API month this year. It's on May 5th and 6th. This is called Breaking Barriers. So everything, again, I always talk about tangible takeaways. I'm like you, where I'm like, what am I getting out of this? I must, I need to, I know I'm here to learn, so I want to learn. And so, each one of these conversations is based on, things that we've heard from our audience in our Q&A portions. So we want to be like, here's the event that we are tailored to you and to this community. So
Hmm.
conversations like how to improve your ERG, what do you say when a microaggression happens? How do you negotiate your salary? And so, how to build your personal brand. So questions
Hmm.
like this, we kind of get, and so we kind of surface the biggest topics and create an agenda out of that. And our two featured keynote speakers is Cindy Gallup and Stop AAPI Hate. So we're really excited to have these speakers be your keynotes, and then we have, I believe it's like 12 different events, and they're all spoken by industry leaders, and a lot of them are API founders,
That's
organization
wonderful.
founders. And the website is asiansinadvertising.com/breaking barriers, or you can just go to the website and it's right there.
That's wonderful. Thank you. Yeah, thanks for mentioning it. I'm sure a lot of our, as a matter of fact, some of our interns who saw the link, they're like, "We signed up." I'm like, "Oh, great! What did you sign up to?" They're like, "There are two events, so we signed up to both."
Oh, that's
Um,
amazing. And
yeah,
it's not
yeah,
just for, I mean, yes, it's from Asians in advertising, but we've been getting signups from all over,
that's wonderful.
across different, cultures as well. So, I mean,
Hmm.
all these are great lessons and they're not exclusively for API.
That's wonderful. Yeah. And to conclude and kind of, as we wrap up, I would like to give you an opportunity. Was there anything you wanted to touch on that we haven't yet? I know there's one thing I want to touch on, but only after you have mentioned your anything that we haven't touched upon.
I mean, I just say, if there's something that's in your heart and you're like, oh, I really wish there was this, this would have helped me out a lot. I would just say create it, do it. You don't realize how many other people could have the same struggles as you and how much it can mean to someone else. Um, Also, pay it forward. Can you mentor? Can you be out there? I think a lot of times I join these mentorship groups and there's no people of color, and so I get all these students who want to work with me because I look or relate to them in a way.
Mhm.
And I just say, hey, people of color out there, just go out. You don't know just your visibility alone, how much that can mean to someone else.
That's wonderful. Yeah. My question was this was a very inspirational ending, so I'm not gonna go into my question, or maybe I will, because and you can answer. But I just found the facts you shared before we started chatting about the minority myth and Asians in New York and that statistic. I found that very
Oh,
useful. If you would share, that
yeah,
would might be
absolutely.
useful. Yeah.
I mean, I think there's this misconception as Asians being this monolith minority, right? All Asians are doing well across the board. So we don't need to help them. They're fine. They're going to good colleges. We don't, they're doing great. But people don't realize that, Asians, 12% live in poverty. And the highest group of poverty in New York is by Asians at 26%. And those 26% usually don't qualify for assistance because there's this assumption that Asians don't need it. And so I just say, hey, Asians come from all over with all different backgrounds. We're not all the same. And that like, yeah, the Asians that went to school and are trying to work up the ladder, they need assistance, but then also the people at the other end. Um, we're just not one big giant bucket.
That's wonderful. That was even a better ending. So I want to thank you so much, Bernice, for coming on the show and sharing some knowledge and thoughts with us. And for audiences who like this conversation, follow us for more, and definitely check out her organization, and which we'll put links in below in the description. And thank you very much, Bernice, again for being on the
This was
show.
wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye bye. Thanks.